Hello, everyone. Welcome to my podcast. Today, I am on with my friend Alec, my friend and teacher, and creator of All Waves Forever or All Waves and Forever.
That's right, always and forever. Yeah.
And Alec's been teaching me how to work with my voice and nada yoga, which is the yoga of sound and the power of the sound. So today, we want to kind of talk about all these things about this yogic journey, this nada yoga path and practice. And I think we're going to start with a little invocation.
That seems appropriate since we're talking about sound. Things I always like to begin with a little invocation. And first of all, thanks, Alex, so much for having me on your podcast. I'm excited to get into it and figure out where this conversation
Yes.
is today. We'll be playing an instrument here called an ektara. It's a gourd with a little bit of a drum head and a single string.
A gourd.
Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuruname Deva Sarvakareshu Sarvata Om Ganapati Namaha. Ganesha, please come. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varde Kamarupani Vidyarambam Karishyami Siddhya Bhavati Me Sada. Saraswati, please come. Shri Veda Purushaya Namaha. Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om Tat Sat.
I was hoping you were going to do that.
Yeah,
Do the invocation.
invite Ganesha to come hang out with us in Saraswati.
Yeah.
Acknowledging
Yeah.
all of our gurus and our teachers, and it says Shri Veda Purushaya Namaha as well. Just all of that Sanatana Dharma. May that be in our room, in our conversation. That tradition's very important to me. And so I always like to remind myself at the beginning when I'm chanting that, I'm not the innovator of any of this knowledge. At best, I'm just a good loudspeaker for it.
Yeah, the invocations I think are so important because, like you said, they really tune you into just like the collective energy of the tradition and the spirit and the practice. And really, that's what I guess we could start with because you're such an interesting person, and I know you lived in India for a few years, so I guess I would like to know kind of what brought you to like working with the sound and the kirtan and nada yoga and just how that sort of developed in your life.
All right, where to begin? A long, long time ago. No. I've always loved music. Music's always been a really big part of my life, actually way before yoga. I didn't get into yoga until I was in college. I was studying geology in Flagstaff, Arizona. And in this small little college town of Flagstaff, Arizona, there's a really amazing teacher named Maharishi Vyasananda Saraswati, who is a part of the Shankaracharya tradition that comes from India. Adi Shankara is really one of the most important figures, specifically in Vedanta or Advaita Vedanta, of which we have, way down the line, we have great gurus like Ramana Maharshi. And so I started studying meditation with him as I was going to college. And really, my first exposure to yoga was through meditating and using bija mantras as a form of meditation. And the style of meditation that he taught me was really resonating and using bija mantras in a really effortless way. And it was a really powerful practice for me and really helped me in so many ways and inspired me to go with him to India to become a
Mm.
teacher of what he calls Vedic meditation. And so I went there with him when I was 25 for the first time. I think it was like 2016 ish. And lived there in the foothills of the Himalayas and did an extensive meditation retreat for like 4 months.
So you just moved there and just just started doing it.
Yeah, I went with him and went to an ashram and did yeah, this intense tapasya where we were meditating like 14 hours a day and like fully in it, fully in it, which was a really big um, culture shock for me in so many ways. I was still very much, still am in a lot of ways in my Western way of seeing things, and then just got just dove really deep into sadhana at that time. Came back and still worked a little bit as a geologist and was beginning to dabble as a meditation teacher. And things just kept calling me back to India. So I kept going back. I would save up some money, quit all my jobs, live in India for like 3 to 5 months until I was either broke or sick. Actually, probably most of the time, both. And I'd come back, I'd recover. Did that on and off for about 4 years. And in one of my trips there, I was really enjoying meditating, of course. Um, but I just noticed all the singing and all of the chanting everywhere. And where I was living in Rishikesh, there's actually a Nada Yoga ashram. And so I went there, I did their teacher training and studied music with a lot of really amazing teachers there. It really opened me up to um, this Nada Yoga practices. And um, over the last, few years that I've been back in America, I've just been continuing to practice what they taught me and find new ways of teaching it and integrating it into what I've already learned from other teachers and continue to do so. It's a ever evolving thing. But I love working with sound and mantra because I feel like it's really um, accessible and has most of the time like pretty immediate results in the sense of the practice feels good while you're practicing it, opposed to maybe suffering through some practice to get some reward at the end. The amazing thing about chanting is um, you get some little treat, a little reward almost every time you chant. And of course, um, over time, bigger, um, um, your practice ripens more and more and more. But it's a little bit of sweetness along the whole way, which I think I need as encouragement, being someone who, can be have anxiety and doubt things and wonder and worry, all of these kind of vata dosha imbalance things that can happen. It's good for me to have that daily validation. It's like, oh, I really like this. I really like doing this.
Yeah, that's such a good point because you really, even if like meditation could be hard if your mind's racing and you like chanting, you could sit down and chant for like 10 or 15 minutes. And even if you've never done it before, you can get into a very blissful connected state almost right away.
Yeah,
That
totally.
that's so cool. Just like the dynamics of how you went to India too. I think just like showing like saving up all your money and then quitting your jobs and then moving like something in your soul was really calling you to be out there, just like to get steeped into that out of nowhere and like so deeply and profoundly.
Yeah, it is. It's weird that like a white boy like me who's born in Utah, in America, I always felt out of place. And still to this day, I look at America, I look at American culture, and it looks like crazy to me. And I often feel like a foreigner here in America, even though I'm not. And I
Yeah.
go to India, and something just the vibe of that place makes sense to me. I feel most at home, really, um, there. And
Yeah.
so as soon as I got there, I was like, "Oh yeah, this is my soul recognizes something."
Yeah, you've probably spent more live times in India than here, but for some reason we need you here this time to teach this stuff
Yeah,
to us here in the United States.
yeah.
Yeah, so that like the mantra when you started doing like the beach mantra even and like how that practice like developed, can you tell us more about just like using mantra in general and how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my first practice, using bija mantras, was taught to me by my teacher, and I was initiated actually into that practice. So this is kind of a this is how most people I think learned meditation back in the day before apps and Google and all these things. You'd sit with a teacher, they'd do some type of puja, some type of ceremony showing you, hey, look, I come from this lineage of teachers and I'm going to pass along a mantra to you for you to really have practice your sadhana on. And so I was actually initiated by an amazing woman named Laura Poole, who now lives in Australia. And she gave me this bija mantra, and the instructions are really elegant and simple and beautiful. Um, the way that we would use bija mantras is, well, first off, we don't associate any meaning with them when we practice with them. So we're not
Hmm.
contemplating the mantra or the meaning of the mantra. We're simply repeating the mantra as effortlessly as possible and actually learning how to let go of the mantra and use the mantra as a device to bring us into gradually subtler and subtler states of consciousness. And then being able to integrate those subtle states in meditation, be able to experience them with our eyes open through practicing 20 minutes twice a day. And so that's basically what I did for the first 3 years of my yoga practice was just sit every day, 20 minutes twice a day, practice a single mantra, um,
Were
20
you
minutes
doing this out loud or inside?
inside. Yeah, you chant the mantra inside. Um, and it's really amazing. The mantras that they use in this practice naturally, um, as you repeat them, become softer and softer, fainter and fainter. And as they become fainter and fainter, they actually become more fulfilling and more enjoyable. And so the mind just naturally follows it until mantra disappears. And then the mind's left in place. No mantra, no thought.
So the mantra is like a method to take you beyond the mantra. It
Exactly.
ultimately, if it works, it like kind of self-destructs itself and then
Yeah.
takes you. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this approach that we use in Vedic meditation is obviously used in so many traditions. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's perfect to have you talking to us about this. And I've been doing a lot of videos lately with mala beads and sound and mantra chanting because I found it to be such a fulfilling practice. And I guess I would like to kind of see from you a little bit about um, the roots of the sound, like the roots of it, like kind of how we talk about the sound being the creation of the universe and everything being the sound. Like, where does this originate from, this vibration?
Well, there's so many different ways we could approach that.
Yeah.
If we look at least the dharmic traditions, they all point towards um, creation coming from um, some sound. If we look at like the Raja Yoga tradition, the tradition of the Yoga Sutras from Maharishi Patanjali, he says all of yoga comes from Om. You know, if we look at like the Bhagavad Gita, he says, God is Om, and everything comes from Om. We look at, the Christian tradition. The beginning, there was the Word. We look at like the tantric traditions. They say Shiva is Om. They say Ganesha is Om. So it's almost unanimous that everything comes from Om, which is, I'm reluctant to say it's a philosophy. It's more of what I think would be called a darshana, or a way of seeing. And the dharmic way of seeing, for the most part, is that this world is fundamentally vibrational. This world is vibrational, meaning that nothing is solid. Everything's continuously moving. Everything is an undulation of pure consciousness. It's all waves and forever.
Oh my gosh, that's where the name comes from. It's all waves and it just goes on forever.
And so,
Wow.
and um, and so sound, as yogic practitioners, is absolutely a huge way for us to have leverage in our yoga practice. So leverage is a very human and brilliant and clever thing that we do. So like if you have a giant boulder and you want to move the boulder, you can use all of your muscle and strength, and maybe you can push it. Or you can use leverage. You can get a stick and some type of focal point, and then simply just pull down gently on one side, and then the whole boulder lifts, right? So sound is this huge tool that gives us leverage in our spiritual practice. Now, it is possible to muscle and fight and use your raw strength to push the boulder, or you can use a tool to have leverage. And so sound is something that almost all of the traditions use as leverage. We either use mantras to help us meditate. We use mantras and sound to help soothe and calm ourselves. We can use mantras as a form of devotion. A mantra really is a tool. It's a sonic tool that we can use. And so all of the traditions use that. And I think that why it's such a powerful tool is because fundamentally this reality is vibrational. So it just works that way.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And a couple of things, I guess you could kind of say that even though all mantras, I guess in essence, would lead to the same place, they do have their own different qualities per se, or like some of them are used for different purposes or connections. I remember Ram Dass even saying like when you chant something like say like the Maha Mantra or the Hanuman Chalisa, you're in a way also connecting with all the beings that have ever chanted that before, like out into the universe. Would you think that is makes sense? Does that sound accurate to you?
Yeah, I'm a believer in that. I think that there's some group effort that is going along with the mantras, and that once again is a huge asset to us as sadhakas, as spiritual seekers. When we tap into something like the Maha Mantra, um, we are moving into a current of energy that's being supported by billions of people that chant it today and that have chanted it for a long time. And so there's a certain amount of mantric inertia that's already present that you can simply set your little boat in and be carried along. And as you chant, you're also growing that
Whoa.
as well. Same with Hanuman Chalisa as well. These very, very popular mantras, me sometimes wanting the most esoteric and secretive knowledge. Sometimes they go, oh, where's the secret mantra that, is unknown? Actually, a lot of times the most popular mantras are actually the most powerful because they're chanted
That's why.
the
Yeah.
most. Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's like we want the cool hidden underground hipster mantra, but actually there's so much power in like Maha mantra because it's chanted by so many people.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And you think people, I mean, a lot of these really powerful mantras, I guess also like in the Sanskrit language, also reminds me of like the Hebrew language. But some of these languages, especially like Sanskrit, for example, is said to kind of right be a language that's meant to like harmonize, like to be more in tune with the universe, so that like the mantras in Sanskrit can also hold a power because of that reason, right? Because of like the language itself.
So what makes Sanskrit unique and special is that every single word in Sanskrit is onomatopoeic. So,
What's
reminder,
that?
onomatopoeia is probably third grade when we learned this all the way back. An onomatopoeia word is like boom, creak, slap, um, bang. The sound of the word is the word. Like the way that,
Oh,
yeah. So like slap, creak, they're onomatopoeic words. The entire language of Sanskrit is onomatopoeic. So like the word for cloud in Sanskrit is payoda, payoda. It sounds soft and fluffy. The word for heart is hridaya. And it sounds like a heartbeat. Hridaya, 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 hridaya. And so that means that when we listen to Sanskrit, the meaning is embedded within the mantra itself, or the form of the mantra is the meaning. And so um,
whoa.
when we listen
Yeah.
to it, our body just knows what to do with it. Like just eating, nutritious food, it just gets absorbed into the body really well. Sanskrit is um, is the same.
It's like coming out of the creative intelligence of the universe. It's like it sounds to me like it harmonizes with what is already. Like it's like
Yeah,
just fits in perfectly.
yeah, and sound is so unique because our bodies can mimic sound. Now, sight is such a dominant sense, and we can draw pictures and we can take photographs, but we can't really replicate or mimic light with our body. Sound, we can actually use our mouth to create sound. And so it allows us to resonate with all of this vibration
Hmm.
um, around us.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
So there's like, so obviously, well, and maybe not obvious to others, but you've been teaching me um the nada yoga and the kirtan and working with my voice and practicing with you. And I guess if you could maybe talk a little bit about what your sadhanas, like what your practices are like with the nada yoga, or just what practices in general with
Uh,
nada yoga kind of are like.
So, generally with Nada Yoga, what we are doing is, let me back up a little bit more. So, Nada Yoga, we're working with sound, and sound is generally in two different big categories, what we call the ahat sound and the anahata sound. Ahat means the sound of two things clapping together. So,
Struck.
right, the struck sound. So it could be our vocal cords. It's all the sound that's moving through the air. It's all the sound that we hear with our ears. We work with that in Nada Yoga. We also work with the anahata sounds. These are the sounds of consciousness. They're not reverberating outside. We're not hearing them with our ears, even though sometimes it kind of, we're so used to hearing, associating it with our ears. We're hearing these sounds inside. So people sometimes at some point every meditator will hear some ringing sound in their meditation or will hear nature sounds. These are part of these anahata sounds. um, there's a big clue too if we think about, the very popular chakra system. The heart chakra is called the Anahata chakra. So that's a big clue that really the seat of the unstruck sound is really within the heart, not just the chakra, but
Hmm.
actually the heart, as in the secret cave in which our soul is resting in its pure form. And so, really, what we're doing in Nada Yoga is um, we're using and working and really developing a devotional practice to understanding sound, understanding music, becoming a better and better musician, which is, an endless endeavor, continuing to enrich our understanding of music, our ability to perform and play music on the outer level, and then also going deep within and experiencing these subtle, subtle sounds, and eventually going to the sound of silence within the heart and resting there as a place of refuge. And so, all the techniques that we're doing are um, covering this whole spectrum. If we're singing and practicing sargam, saregama padani sa sa ni da pa magare sa, we're doing that and we're working with the external sound. And then we're meditating inwardly and repeating mantras inside, working with that anahata. And eventually, and because they're actually mirrors of each other,
Mm.
and yoga union, we're actually trying to bring these things together more and more through our practice. Integrate inside, outside, same, but different.
Yeah, it's like one leads to the other, but ultimately they're one and sort of,
Yeah.
or yeah, they're one and go
Yeah.
together, and then ultimately leading you to what you already are inside the heart.
And so in Nada Yoga, we're one of the main things we're doing is we're moving energy up and down the spine, which is a form of kundalini, working with kundalini. Where I find it is unique in its approach, from what I think is offered around a lot of the kundalini community, is it's not about ascending or descending. It's about balancing Ida, Pingala, Sushumna Nadi, and resting in the heart. Resting in the heart. We're not trying to um, transcend and leave. It's all about coming in um, to the heart.
The heart, yeah, the heart, which is ultimately everything. I would say, like all
Yeah,
in everything inside and outside the universe, it like also resides within the heart, right? Like that's like the center
exactly.
of it all.
Yeah, and
And
trying to live from there, which is a daily practice. I get stuck in my head all the time. I could get my head and worries and all those thoughts, and so it's a daily practice for me to um, return return to my heart.
yeah, yes, certainly. And I guess an important thing to talk about is like the sadhana or the importance of having a discipline when you're working with
Yeah,
mantra or you're working with these sounds, like maybe a little bit about the importance of like trying to have a discipline or consistency, and maybe like uh not so much an attachment to the result, and having faith that like if you do keep showing up and doing the work, that like these things you speak of will start to awaken inside and start to reveal themselves.
and for that reason, music is an incredible sadhana because music never really gets anywhere. Music only
Ah,
exists in the present moment.
whoa.
No matter how long you practice as a musician, you'll never know everything. You know, there's so much to learn as a musician. People devote lifetimes to this practice, and it's something that will always bring you into the present moment. I mean, as musicians, we have the experience of improvisation, where really we're connecting to that inner knot and it's flowing through us. It's this phenomena that, the least spiritual musicians among us will admit that they get into a flow state where the music's just pouring through them, and they're more of a listener than a doer in that moment. That really is like, um, that's one of the most powerful things about Nada yoga. And learning music is, in a sense, it's abstract, it's invisible, but yet there is a science to it. There is a science to music, and there is things to practice and things to sharpen your skills. Whereas a lot of spiritual practices can seem very ambiguous and difficult to really see growth in certain ways. I see this a lot with, like, not to pick on a particular anything or other, but something like shadow work. And it's like, oh, I'm doing shadow work. And they're doing more and more shadow work all the time. And maybe there are some fruits of them being like, okay, maybe I'm being more compassionate and being more understanding. Sometimes it's difficult to really know, how is this developing? Music, it's like, wow, I'm seeing myself getting better at harmonium. I'm seeing myself getting better at singing. And um, and it's also having some of these similar effects, more compassion, more understanding, and so much rasa, so much beauty that comes from a musical sadhana. um, I'll pause there for a second.
No, it is. It's so beautiful, and it just reminds, like, I just wanted to, from me working with you, and I had been practicing some mantra before that this year too, but it's beautiful because you're talking about the growth, and like I've seen growth in myself in the practice and with like the frequencies and pitches, and I'm a good example, I think, because I come from like having no musical background and no like singing ability and no voice. It's not like, oh, I've always been in tune with this, but I just started realizing like the power of it, and just like what it does. And I don't mean power by like gaining like power to like conquer things, but like
Yeah.
uh what it can awaken in you. So I think it's a good example of how you could use these practices, and you could start from, you don't have to be a singer to start or anything like that.
Yeah, definitely not. I mean, that's something that I've even struggled with at times. Like, okay, I'm teaching sargam, which is this Indian way of singing, and I'm not a master of it, not even close. I kind of know the basics, and I choose to teach it because even just the basics I've seen have really helped me. And even just teaching some of the basic things to people is helping them. And we don't have to be the best guitar player in the world to enjoy playing guitar, or the best singer in the world to enjoy it and to get um, some benefit from it. I think that's a story that a lot of us, oh, if I'm not the best or if I'm not an expert, I can't share. I just think that we're really missing out. Singing is something that I think um, is just as important as clean air, clean water, clean food. It's something very human that, from
Yeah.
my perspective, we're missing out on really a major part of life if we're not exploring music. That's obviously showing my bias very much. That's how I feel.
It is. It reminded me, when my dad was I was teaching Kundalini yoga the other day, and my dad was there, and he mentioned after how he had tried to get into, doing some of the singing that we did at the end and stuff like that. And I think that is a hard part of it too. That is a good benefit, is like the courage and strength it takes when we do, we can chant and do mantra on our own mantra, but when we do it with others too, that's another level of like being able to express your own voice. And a lot of times people have a lot of fear about that, just like getting open like that and just singing or chanting, whether it's in English or in Sanskrit. And I think that's been another part of it for me that's helped a lot and helped me to develop a lot of just like courage and strength to, and the ability to like project my voice and not be afraid to do so.
Absolutely. Singing is an act of courage. It really is. I don't really know anything else that gets you to step into your vulnerability um, quicker than singing in front of a bunch of people. Um, you know, learning how to lead kirtan has been one of the hardest things I've ever done, to be honest.
Yeah, I
It's
was just gonna ask you about the
uh,
kirtan actually. So
so for those kirtan's a call and response mantra chanting practice, so it would fit nicely in our category of Nada yoga. It's one of my main practices is chanting, um, and getting in front of people that have never done it before, chanting, inspiring them to also sing along has been a really incredible journey for me. Because every time, as like the kirtan leader, I have to sing, I have to be comfortable in my voice, and I found that the more authentically and sincere I share my voice, it inspires other people to do the same. And um, yeah, singing is just so powerful. I mean, people say more people fear public speaking than
and
death. And so I
whoa.
public singing is
Yeah.
probably even more scary for a lot of people. And I mean, you'll feel it in your body. Every once in a while, like kirtans, I don't do this all the time, but when I'm in an intimate setting, I'll have people have the opportunity to um, say the mantra and then have everybody sing it back to them, like how I do as the leader. And we kind of popcorn and go around and give people different opportunities to sing. And there's something that happens when everyone's listening to just you sing. And it's like physical. Some people get hot or they sweat or your voice gets tightened and you're like really being seen. And you have to learn to really be okay and how to relax into being seen and relax into being heard. And it's like, it's an amazing purification, honestly,
So
to do.
amazing.
Yeah.
It made me because when I was in Kundalini yoga classes, I was like, oh, I love chanting. The teacher's doing it, everyone's doing it. But then when I found myself up there at the front and I'm like, oh shit, now I gotta lead this. And it is different. It's different for sure. Um yeah, I'm grateful for it. It really is very purifying and it helps to take you beyond ego. Yeah, to take you
Yeah.
beyond ego. Yeah.
Or you're singing there and the ego screaming as you're doing it.
Yeah, I guess that's a way of saying it too. Yeah. Maybe
Like you're,
not or not even beyond, but just I guess having to be okay with it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because, definitely, especially when I first started singing, it's like I'm singing and my inner critic is just screaming. And somehow I'm just white knuckling through it. That's how my first few kirtans went, were me chanting and being like, they hate this. I feel like I'm torturing these people. My voice is cracking. I can't remember the mantra right. And it's just like
Wow.
so much self-critical um, stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know? And, I'm maybe not the quickest learner, but I don't really give up. And so I kept on doing it, kept on doing it. And then that inner critic slowly but surely is starting to fade away more and more as I do it. Um, you know, and I've only been leading kirtan for like about 4 years. I've been doing it now. And I'm barely, to be honest, after 4 years getting to a place where I'm really even having fun, which maybe sounds silly, but like the first few years of doing it, it wasn't even fun, really. I was doing I knew something was important, but I'd be doing it and the entire time I'd be like, as I'm leading it, I'm all of this negative self-talk and self-criticalness is just coming up and coming up and coming up. But I know now it's releasing, it's purifying. And now I'm slowly getting to a part where I'm actually able to chant and be present with the practice more and more and really be, I'm actually really enjoying this just like I would if I was home alone. So it's like, you know, I didn't wait until I was really comfortable with it. I just embraced the uncomfortability of it, and something in me knew it's like, and I did have moments of fun too. It wasn't totally torture the whole time. But I'm sharing this, like, it was, I think so many of us as new yoga teachers and stuff like that have so much inner self criticism, and I think it's so important to acknowledge that we're having that, and to see it as, okay, this is releasing out of me,
Mm.
and allow it to release, not attach it, not identify to it. If you can, for just 1 second, come back to your heart, even if it's for a split second before all of it starts coming back. We just keep doing that. And I can say after 4 years, you know, less criticalness is happening, and more calm is happening. It's not 100% calm all the time. Self critic still pops his head up during the kirtans and stuff like that. And then it's just my opportunity to come back to the mantra, come back to the chanting. When I'm leading kirtan, I am in my practice of letting go of my insecurities, my self judgments, and coming back to the mantra again and again and again and again through the entire time that I'm leading.
That's amazing. And that it's so beautiful to show that, like, as teachers, like you said, because there's a lot of people I know that uh say yoga teachers of different forms of yoga and stuff that aren't doing it, but that, like, have trained and would love to and would help so many people and want to. But sometimes we kind of, like you say, wait for when we're ready, but there's never like when you'll be ready. It's like you have to step into it through the fear and through the uncertainty, rather than thinking of like, I'll wait until I'm not afraid anymore and then I'll start, because that's never going to happen.
Yeah, and becoming a new yoga teacher, there's a certain amount of just like sharpening your teeth, of showing up to classes and marking classes that no one comes to. That's a huge slap to the ego. You prepare for this class, no one comes. I've done that so many times, and going through the fluctuations of, wow, I got a really good turnout this time, and the next time not, and showing up and going through that huge purification process that is being a teacher. If you're a teacher, you are working out your karma. The really great gurus and saints don't teach. If you are teaching, it means that
Yeah.
you're in your practice.
Yeah.
I'm not a guru. As I'm sharing the kirtan practice, I'm in my practice. As I'm chanting, I'm purifying myself. Um, and hopefully creating a space where other people um, are doing the same. And as being a new yoga teacher, you have to have the courage to show up and do that work. Um, and it's really intimidating for a lot of people. And I just want to encourage people. It's like, show up and share um, what you practice. I think that is very important though too. Share what you're doing. Share something that you really are devoted to. Um, yeah, so much patience on the spiritual path. It is not a 40-day challenge.
Yeah, it's like just like little by little by little, and it's so great that you have done that through step through that, because another way to think about it too is like all the people that you've introduced this to, or chanted with, or sing with, that if you had not stepped through that fair, then all those 4 years of that, all the opportunities of people you could have helped wouldn't have been there. So that's beautiful too. It's really cool too when we sing and chant together, how it becomes like one wavelength. Like, I'll notice when we're chanting at the end of kundalini, when it really is going good, it's like I wish I could see the energy, I can't, but it's like everything you can feel is like right on the same vibration.
Yeah, it's just so, yeah, it's so incredible. we went to this like Buddhist fellowship thing the other day. It was really nice. We were talking, and then there was a part we did chanting. I was like, oh yes. It was my favorite part. It's just my favorite thing. It's like all of a sudden we were all chanting together, and I was just like, it's just my favorite part of any like sadhanas when we're all, singing together. Um, yeah, like we all on that same wavelength. It's just incredible.
Sometimes when I've been in very connected meditative states, I that's came to me like that's why Krishna Das and stuff just chants, because it seems to me like what else is there to do? Like it's the most purest thing is to just to sing to God.
Yeah,
Like there's other things we do in life, but ultimately in the universal existence, it's like what else is there to do but just like sing to
yeah.
eternity?
Sing, and then we have to step away from the singing for our karma to unravel.
Hmm.
And that's why Maharaji sent everybody back to America. He didn't keep everybody in his presence just chanting the whole time because they all have karma that needed to unravel. And Krishnadas is an example. Not that I know him personally, I only know him from like the documentaries and stuff like that. So,
But yeah, that is okay.
but he had to come back to America, go through so much karma after so much grace of being, with the guru. And, we do our practice and then live our lives and allow our karmas to come to fruit and hopefully
Hmm.
or into our dharma. Um, yeah,
Yeah, the life is in between doing our practices, the life is like where it all plays out in all your daily everything that just unfolds naturally, and the people you run into and just all your daily circumstances is like if you see it that way and realize that it's burning. I mean, even if you don't, it's still burning out karma. But once you really realize that that's what's going on, and see your life in that way as sort of an unfolding curriculum of working through this stuff, then it really can like take on a deeper meaning and sort of accelerate. I wanted to know, I guess before we finish up, probably in the next couple minutes, like what are you doing now? Like what are the things that you're working on right now? And also maybe how people could connect with you if they would like to, whether on social media or in person or anything.
oh, the first thing that came up, the big things I'm working on right now are really so much about grahasti life, householder life. Being a dad and being a husband is like really my dominant spiritual practice right now. Um, being a provider is so much of my practice right now. Um, as far as what I'm working on with Nada Yoga and those
Mm.
practices that I'm working on um, are, my meditation practice, and that involves chanting, doing the Nada Yoga Kriya sets, working with mudra and working with movement and sound all together, and chanting with people. Chanting with people is a huge part of my practice right now. So, for people that live in Salt Lake City, that's primarily where I'm chanting in person, and then hopefully spreading my wings, chanting and touring around a little bit more. Hopefully, that's in the future. And then online, every once in a while, I'm trying to get to do about every month, doing a Nada Yoga satsang where we can learn about Nada Yoga, share experiences with Nada Yoga um, together. And then I also teach private Nada Yoga lessons as well with people who are wanting some individual instruction um, on Nada Yoga. The group is really good, but individually working one on one is really the best for developing your Nada Yoga practice. Maybe that's singing, maybe that's playing an instrument. I only teach voice, guitar, and harmonium, but the way I teach it, you learn about Nada Yoga as you're learning your instrument and
Mm.
voice, um, which for those who are called, it's a really amazing practice. And I guess the best way to stay connected with me, I do Instagram. That's about the only social media thing I do a lot of at this point. My Instagram's allwaves.and.forever. And then I have a website, allwaves.and.forever.com, where you can learn more about what I do and see the events and stuff that I'm holding.
Yeah, I'll put all of your info in these bios too, on YouTube and Spotify, so that people can connect if they like to and can more easily get to it. Um, yeah, that's awesome. I was wondering, um, before we finish, would you like to lead me through possibly that Om toning set, so that
Yeah,
people can kind of see like a little sadhana of the Nada yoga?
absolutely. And for that, just because of the latency on Zoom, maybe mute yourself.
Okay.
Go ahead and practice with me, and then so if we mute it, then the sound will go back and forth.
Yes,
Hopefully,
good idea.
hear the harmonium that I'm playing.
Are you playing it now?
Yeah, can you hear it?
Yeah, I can hear it.
Wonderful. Go ahead and mute yourself, and then I'll lead us through the practice together. Okay, I invite you to connect with your breath. And if it feels good, close your eyes. Deepen your breath a little bit more, slowing down. And on your next exhale, begin to hum along with me. Relax the muscles in your face, relax your jaw, open your mouth wide to ah, awareness on the base of your spine. Bring your awareness to your heart. Chant ooh. 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 Close the lips. Bring your awareness to your third eye. Lift your tongue like an elephant trunk, pressing firmly into the roof of your mouth. Slide your tongue back towards your uvula until you find the soft palate. Press firmly into the soft palate and hum at the same time. Relax your tongue on the inhale. And bring it back to the soft palate on the exhale with humming. One more time. Release your tongue. Without making a sound, hum on the inside. Imagine that you're humming. Notice that humming sensation feels like it's coming from your head. And allow it to descend from your head to your heart, so that your heart is inwardly humming. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you. I love that one so much. It's so beautiful. And it's so cool because anybody could just like do it. It's not that hard to do. And it like just gets you into such a beautiful space.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And when you practice that, if you choose to practice that, you can then stay in that meditative space then for, 5, 10, 20 minutes
After it.
before before opening
Oh,
before
before.
opening the eyes. Um, so much more we can add on to it. That's kind of like the bread and butter Nada Yoga Kriya
And,
set.
and that is like Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, right? So the base of the spine is like creation, and then the ooh and the heart is the preservation of existence, and then the at the third eye is the destruction, right? Or like
Well,
the
yeah,
transformation.
you're picking up on, we're chanting the different aspects of Om, Ah, U, And so there's so many different ways we can look at this. In Mandukya Upanishad, Ah is associated with the waking state of consciousness. U is associated with the dreaming state of consciousness. Is associated with the deep sleep state,
Mm.
Basel. And then, of course, the silence
Ah,
is for Turiya, the fourth state of consciousness, which is the sound of silence itself. And then also what you just pointed out, we can also look as ah, u, and ah being associated with Brahma, u being associated with Vishnu. Vishnu is also the dreamer as Narayan, so that's why he's associated with um, this dreaming state of consciousness. And then is for Mahadev or Maheshwara, which is Shiva. Um,
mm.
the destroyer or the dissolver. Everything dissolves into that deep that our whole reality dissolves when we're in that deep formless state of deep sleep. And then, of course, Turiya, the sound of silence beyond all of them.
Whoa. Tomorrow's Shivatri, the day of Shiva.
Yeah. Shivaratri.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to chant some Om Namah Shivayas. Wow, that was I don't know what to say. That was beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much. That was like very powerful. Even at the end there, when you were explaining all that, I could feel like energy chills going up like the back of my spine, just like the essence of it. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. You're so welcome, Alex. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I always love a chance to just get to hang out and talk with you.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, Alex.
Ram.
Ram Ram.